So hello out there. It's me. I'm back, T.M. Brown. And I wanted to welcome you to the second part of Early Days. To be honest, you guys, I had to take a moment and just collect myself. I found myself stumbling over my words because my emotions were getting the best of me. To share one story, especially a story like this, it's not easy, even though what I'm sharing with you are memories and experiences that happened a very long time ago. Some of it still feels like yesterday. So I just had to take a moment to step back. So you may be asking, why is she doing this if it causes her so much stress? Sometimes I ask myself that same question. I can only tell you that I am very passionate and always have been about helping other people. When I was a little kid and people asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I didn't have a specific answer. I only knew that I wanted to help people. And that's still the case. 56 years old, and I still feel that way. So I share my story in the hopes that you will be inspired to live your life, to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but you must keep moving forward, and I know that that's not an easy thing. So let's continue with our reading of Early Days. If you happen to have my book, A Life Not My Own, and you want to follow along, that would be great. If you haven't picked up the book, my books are available through my website, www.authortmbrown.com. And we started with the very first page of A Life Not My Own. And we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this together. There are going to be tears on both sides of this thing, but I think it's important, and I pray that someone out there is encouraged to keep moving forward. So I'm just going to back up just a little bit, just so everyone can kind of get on the same page. So I'll start with like a paragraph from the previous episode, and it is part of the chapter Early Days. Are you in there? I said once more. I knew she was in there. I could see the bathroom light under the door. I heard her come into the apartment a few minutes earlier. If she wasn't answering me, it could only be one thing. She was getting high. Finally. Go back to bed, girl, she said. But just do what I said, she said. But I gotta go to the bathroom, I said. I'll be out in a minute, she said slowly. I could hear the difference in her voice now. It seemed to take forever before she actually came out of the bathroom. She had that look on her face that I had seen so many times before. I knew she was high. I didn't say a word. I was afraid she would know that I knew what she was doing in the bathroom, and this would upset her, even if she were high. As a result of these experiences, I've learned how to hide my feelings, so well, in fact, that I have to work on expressing them. I don't say what I feel in most cases. I ask questions or make statements in such a way as to present an image of impartiality. In other words, I play on words. I handle situations without showing my emotion. I have been practicing this for a long time, and now it's become part of my personality. So, I ask you, where does a parent's responsibility lie? Is parental responsibility fulfilled by enrolling kids in school programs to get them fed, making sure that enough soap is brought for kids to wash their own clothing, remembering to keep extra grocery bags to be used as toilet paper? I think not. Looking back on those days through the eyes of an adult and a mother, I become very angry and very sad. I am angry at a social system which has no safety net to protect the innocent children who fall through the cracks. Angry at the impartiality of most people who refuse to even admit that there is a problem. Most of all, angry at the selfishness and self-absorption that my mother's drug addiction brought into our lives. Betty's drug addiction put a weird spin on the rationale in our household. I may be using drugs, but my children are clean, well-mannered, and go to school every day. You don't see my children dirty or roaming the streets at night. I make sure my children have something to eat. Just 'cause I'm using this shit don't mean my children ain't going to church every Sunday. Just 'cause Tina and Mac only have one set of clothes don't mean they're going to be dirty. Just 'cause they children don't mean they can't keep this house clean. I can still remember the expression on Betty's face when she came home high on drugs. She already had big eyes, and she looked like they were going to pop out of her head when she was high. Her eyes seemed to be the only things that were alive on her when she was high. Everything else about her seemed to be moving in slow motion. Her mannerisms resembled those of an animated doll in a Christmas store window. She even spoke slowly, slurring her words. Oddly enough, she was much nicer to Mac and me when she was high. She'd sit and watch TV with us, wash my hair, ask about school, fix dinner if there was anything in the house, and nothing seemed to upset her. She had this strange habit of eating dry starch. I wonder how many of you remember that. I think it came in a red box, and I remember it being sold in this bright red box. And Mac and I would eat it too. I'm not even sure if I liked it. What's to like about dry starch? It was just one of those brief opportunities to bond with her that Mac and I craved and couldn't pass up. Most of the lessons that I've learned from my mother were unspoken, but they stayed with me for most of my life. The strange thing is, I had no idea the impact those years would have on my adult life, and some of them have lingered to this day. Although I was very lucky to have a grandmother who saved my brother and me, the scars are still here. I wrote A Life Not My Own in 2012, and this statement is still true. Some of the scars are still there. When I remember the years that I spent with Betty, I see myself as a much older child. I was only about 7 or 8 years old when Ma and Frank saved me. If I seem to be painting a picture of this terrible mother, I have to apologize for that. It's very hard to remember good times, the good times that we had with Betty, although there were a few. On occasion, when she was at home, she'd sing to us. She had this really raspy singing voice. I guess it was one of those voices that only your children think is great, you know. There was one song in particular that she liked to sing, Charlie Brown. Mac and I really got a kick out of it when she would sing that to us. In 1968, Betty took us on a trip to Virginia. We caught the Greyhound bus from Baltimore to her small hometown, and it seemed to take forever. I guess I must have been about 7 years old. We stayed at an older man's house that Betty knew. I think he may have been a distant relative. His house was little more than a shack. The house was in dire need of exterior paint, and there was no grass in the front yard. The house contained a strange, stale tobacco odor, and Mac and I played in the woods located in back of his property, collecting all the colorful Alberto tobacco tins that we could find. Betty seemed different when we were there. She seemed comfortable, and I remember her smiling. We visited my cousins on my father's side of the family during the visit, although nobody actually said that was on my father's side. They all seemed to know who I was, and it felt strange to hear so many people freely using my name and I not knowing who they were. Betty introduced me to my aunt and my cousins. I was amazed at how many people lived in such a small house. The house was painted bright yellow and consisted of no more than 2 bedrooms, but there were at least 6 children and 2 adults living in the house. There, again, no grass in the front yard. That contained several cars. And lots of auto parts. We stayed in Virginia for only a few days and then returned home to Baltimore. Upon our return, we were welcomed with armored tanks, soldiers on rooftops, and blacks who were breaking storefront windows, stealing and running through the streets. Other residents of the community watched from their apartment windows and stoops. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had been assassinated, and the city was in an uproar. Stores were set afire, and some white store owners were beaten. An armored tank drove right down the street where we live. To me, it was just pure excitement. Had never seen anything like it. In school, we were learning about the philosophy of Dr. King. This event was especially meaningful to me. Even at 7 years old, I felt a part of it all. Dr. King was an icon. His picture, along with President Kennedy's, was part of the required decor of the black households during the 1960s. On April 4th, 1968, at 6:01 p.m., the whole country, blacks and whites alike, felt his loss. Hate was something that I had not been taught as a child. To see so many people upset and expressing that hate by looting our neighborhood stores really didn't make sense to me. In school, we were told that the bad people had killed Dr. King because they were afraid of what he was trying to do to bring people together. We were told to continue thinking as he did, and that one day the world would be a better place. Eventually, the National Guardsmen departed, and the looted items were sold in the community by the neighborhood thieves. There was loot hidden everywhere. Mac and I were lucky to find some of the sodas, candy, and canned meat hidden in the abandoned houses where we played. And of course, we ate everything we found. At some point in our lives, I think we as adults have to do a self-assessment. As with most people, my early childhood played an important role in the person that I have become. Why do I have clothes in my closet that still have tags on them? Why do I consciously ensure that I never wear the same thing too often? Why do I get so crazy when I see the back of the refrigerator? Why am I so easily embarrassed? Why do I find it difficult to say what I really feel? Why is it so important to me to be loved unconditionally? I think by reflecting on my past, the answers to most of these questions are quite clear. So I guess we're going to have to stop this episode right here because I'm running out of time for this particular installment. But we'll just keep it going, and I hope you have enjoyed it. Have a great day. Bye.